Uh, Greetings, this is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster. It has been 3 years, but production has resumed and completed the season of the Orville. And yes, I increased my Disney Plus so I could get the Hulu and watch the Orville pilot, followed by, I believe, one more episode. I will review the pilot and go on to the episode of New Horizons. The pilot. Yes, I just was with Mark's cards earlier, just moments ago, and did not have the chance to review the episode because he didn't see it. So now I'm reviewing it, now that the other stuff is over. New Horizons. The episode is called Electric Sheep, and basically it is the darker, angstier season of the Orville that's trying to be like Star Trek. Clearly heavily influenced by the Chimera movies, but not so much inspired by all Transformers much because it was before it. Because the 2019 footage was filmed in 2019 before it, so it can't say that they're inspired by that. They're inspired by Chimera, and so yes, so it's not quite Silly Trek. It's sort of Starship Locations, but yes, and that's fine. Just before they did a whole season, they did it off and on. We had there was a YouTuber called JP of Orville that kept everyone on their edge of their seats through the whole thing. Now it's finally out. The Trek Yards people are on it too. Finally out to talk about it. And we can finally reveal the pilot episode, which we kind of knew stuff about 3 years ago, and because even though it wasn't Chimera exactly, it did have elements of some of her angstier stuff. I was also inspired by Ken Pillar's story, who is not related, who did that Q episode. With the angsty Q that wanted to kill himself. So yes, there's some dark undertones in the story. I'm not sure what to think of it really, except that it would be a brilliant spoof of Starship Discovery season 2 if it's out there. But yes, but that's what they had to work with. So, basically, we start our story with after the war with the Kalon. The Kalon are like the Borg, but they're more like Asimovian robots, which is why one of them is called Isaac. But Asimovian robots would be programmed to not fight. The 3 laws of robotics. But on this planet, apparently, that's the other way around. The Finn's sons, our doctor's sons, are freaked out by Isaac. The older one more so, and that comes up in the story. They have rebuilt the Orville, and it's in dry dock for most of the episode. They test a new fighter plane thing that looks like something out of Distant Destinies. Canary Space. Same difference. There's an angsty new crewman, Kylie or something like that. Yeah, it's basically the Libby character from On Location, Starship Locations, On Location, the Libyan, she's not really Libyan, they just called her that because her name is Libby. The Tenactus, the Borg. She's an ensign on the ship. It's a new character. She does not handle conflict well in the story. She doesn't like Isaac, but she has fourth dimensional thoughts. She's a Cillian on the Orville, so the Orville has a Cillian. I'm assuming the story takes place roughly in 2420 or so, 2419, 2420, about 2 years after the pilot. The refit has been several weeks, so they were able to rebuild the sets. Basically, this gave them an excuse to mess with the sets because 20th Century Fox was bought out by Disney. and they threw the show around. It would have ended up like Firefly and never come back, but Seth MacFarlane and them went over to Disney, and they said, okay, you can go over shop this over to Hulu if you want. So they shopped it over to Hulu. So 20th and Hulu have a deal with through Disney to play at least this season of the Orville subtitled New Horizons. Yeah, so I don't know if you're gonna blink and you miss it. Moment of Kal Kat in that pilot. So yes, go and watch it. But yes, through the miracle of Zoom. Anyways, yeah, similar to what was done in The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. What was done in that other one too. The Star Wars one too. Wasn't actually there. Phoned in the scene. Didn't get paid. Anyway, so we have... Or you can just say it was a guy that looked kind of like me in the background. But yeah, so... Or you can say that too. Let's just say that. So the story is that the crew... Half the crew doesn't like Isaac because he was one of the Kalon. They're prejudiced of him. Somebody has written murderer on the in his lab. Turns out it's Finn's kid, the older kid that did it, and because the robot is basically extremely logical. When the kid tells him you should just be dead, he's insulting him. He takes himself out. The robot does. He didn't have the depression before, but for some reason they're going to tackle that. So they spend the episode dealing with the robot's death, and yeah, which is similar to some of the all Transformers Mush stories. Actually, very similar to the transitions by Bobby Carruthers or whatever. She's somewhere in the credits there about that story. Maybe she's. So yeah, there was a lot of that in there, but that's just your basic angst story. They of course it's science fiction, so even though the fourth dimensional person, of course, is going to have to help them figure out a way to revive the robot, basically. So your basic premise is like, okay, they've done all this drama with dealing with this character having killed himself, which is messed up and dark and twisted, but spoilers, I guess. They handled that well for a comedy. It's interesting they're going with the depression angle. Maybe because the guy who played the melty dude passed away, but I think he passed away from something other than depression. I think he passed away from COVID or something. The guy that they got to play Yaphet, yeah, he died. But they've honored Yaphet by including a Yaphet-like character in Star Trek, in Prodigy. So. Yaphet. He doesn't die in this story though, but he did all his lines apparently before, so his lines are all in there. So yeah, the I don't know if that necessarily the drama works if they found a way to revive the robot's like backup memory card thing at the end, kind of smashing into it, but sure, I guess the other stuff does work, and that the crew eventually revive him and learn to respect him or something. It's a little heavy-handed. It could work. It's not your usual Seth MacFarlane story, really. It's more of a trying for a more CW slash like superhero thing, made for TV thing. But there are some cool special effects of ships going around and the launch of the ship, and the ship goes to a planet, sort of a super Earth planet with neat storms, and flies around in there because it's being chased by a Kalon vessel, which doesn't seem connected to the brain ship. I'm not sure why it's after them. Maybe because they were flying their fighter plane around the ship and it attracted their attention earlier on in that dry dock. I'm not sure. Anyway, so yeah, it's interesting. We're back with the Orville, and that I knew some stuff. I knew they were replacing some actors, bringing some in. knew they were bringing in this one girl that's like basically on locations. The Libby, she's in it. It's not her, obviously, but somebody like her. We already have Mercer in the other, and of course, when I did Starship Location Strange Worlds, I sort of made the dynamic of the Locarnos sort of like those on the Orville, like Dax and but made Dax a captain and the admiral. They didn't make McFarlane's character an admiral. They didn't do that, but I did in my version, just to make it different. So I didn't quite know exactly what they were going to do. There was no back and forth or anything. It's interesting, though, with the direction they went. We'll have to see from the next episode what the direction they do now. I mean, there weren't a whole lot of jokes. It was just a straight-up story that they were trying to tell. A drama story with dealing with the themes that they do address, with the doctor lady trying to get Isaac to admit that he was depressed or something and not to do that anymore. But was he depressed, or was he actually just doing what he was told because someone told him to do that? I would think their society would destroy itself if that was the case, because like everything they were told, they would just obey. Like, no, it kind of doesn't work. But you kind of figured, well, they were probably bringing the robot back because they didn't let the actor leave. But yeah, I don't know if that undercuts the other story idea. I like the idea that they tackled the depression and stuff, because during the COVID, there's many people with PSTD kind of symptoms, rest through the crew on the ship and whatever, and that's a cool idea. However, I think when they first wrote this, it was before COVID, this episode, so. And then the PSTD people have during the COVID. Yeah, so it's kind of almost a spoof of like internet vitriol and stuff too, as well. Apparently there's a scene where they figure things out vicariously through the I forget what the black dude's name is. I forget what a lot of them their names are. I know the captain's Mercer, his wife is Kelly, and the Libby it's not Libby, but something else. But the black guy's in bed with an alien that has sort of like she looks like a white dryer sponge, one of those plucky dryer sponge balls. Like it's like little knobs all over, which would be really uncomfortable, I would think, to have sex with that. I guess he manages because his skin is rough. I don't know. It would be like getting knocked around in a dryer. But yeah, they don't show anything. They just play. So that is. That's the Orville pilot. Different. I'm not sure how many episodes. Getting 10 episodes out of this, I think. But they're longer. They're like an hour and a half. No, they're roughly an hour and 10, maybe. Roughly. Yeah, so we'll go on to the next one, I guess.